as I went through my own journey of growth and understanding myself, I was able to let go of that belief that I don't need to fix anyone, and actually people are not broken. I didn't really believe I had any gifts, like there were things that I was really good at, especially in my TV career, but she helped me see my innate gifts that were always there. I just didn't appreciate them or see them. I remember the day she said to me, I have to take off my coaching hat for a second, and I feel compelled to say this to you. You're meant to do what I do. I connect to a very deep inner part of them. I feel that I can see the beauty in people and the human being inside of people, the truth inside of people. It's a human experience to experience suffering, even if it's just momentary, circumstantial suffering.
Hello, and welcome to the Jeffrey Eisen podcast. This podcast is about using spiritual wisdom, insights, principles, and practices to integrate and embody into your life in a practical way. My guests share their story of their spiritual journey, as well as how their spiritual beliefs, insights, and practices have helped them live a better life. Their life stories help others understand and accept life's challenging opportunities for learning, expansion, and growth. My guest today is Jenny Tryansky from Toronto, Ontario. Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here and chat with you.
Yes, and before we started this recording, we already had a long conversation because every time you and I get together, there seems to be lots to talk about. Jenny, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your spiritual journey?
Thank you. Well, I'm a personal development coach. So some people like to say life coach, and that's fine. I work with clients with an approach that really is focused on the whole person and every aspect of their life. Because I really believe that it's all connected, right? People come to me for different starting points, different areas they want to focus on. But at the end of the day, it really is about the human being and who they are and who they're becoming. So yeah, I absolutely love this work. I am technically a coactive coach. So that is my training. I'm a certified professional coactive coach, which is really important to me. Because it's based on a foundation that I just truly, truly believe in. And I believe that the work I do is very deep and very transformative. So I feel very lucky to have happened upon the coach training that I did, because it speaks to my whole belief system, really. And it's very human. I take a very human approach to growth and transformation. Like we can't pretend that we're not complicated. And I really include the complexities of being human in my work with people.
Now, you weren't always a coach, were you?
No, I had my entire career over 20 years was in television. I was a television producer, director, and before I left my career a couple of years ago, I was a production executive at a national broadcaster, a Canadian broadcaster. And I worked on some really big, popular shows on some really popular networks. And it was my dream job and my dream career until it wasn't anymore. And I went through my own, I call it a chaos, I went through my own chaos that led me to this new life where I really believed, I kind of went from a career that was a passion to a new career that I believe is a calling, where I really feel like I'm living my purpose.
Tell us a bit about that transition and about that chaos. And I think that word really resonates with a lot of listeners, because I know I began my journey with the chaos, and there are degrees of chaos. I think some people are fortunate enough to have mild chaos, and unfortunately some people who are nudged to go on their journey are given more severe chaos. Tell us a bit about that transition and how you realized that if you kept doing what you were doing, that it was not going to work out that well for you.
Yeah. I have to say, now looking back, anytime I've done something that felt big and meaningful, it usually started with a chaos. Which is just interesting. I think it's a signal that there's something here for you to really look at, right? And it's almost like a signal going off inside of you. Like, you can't ignore this. There's something for you here to look at that's really important. And some people choose to push it down and ignore it. And I'm the type of person where there was no choice. Like, I couldn't ignore it. So for me, I really enjoyed my career in television, and I was very happy until a few things started happening circumstantially. The company I worked for went through a merger. The environment became very strained and toxic, which is typical, when companies are in transition. The industry in Canada was going through some transitions, and I started to feel like I was sort of dipping into a version of myself that didn't feel like me. I was a version of myself that I really didn't like. And I blamed it on the circumstances at first. It felt like, well, it's because of this merger. It's because of, the chaos happening in the industry. And really, it took me a while to realize, no, something has changed within me. I had become a mother, and when I went back to work after having my babies, it was interesting timing. That's sort of when the transition started to happen in my workplace. And it all just kind of came to a head when one day I found myself really experiencing suffering, like an internal suffering. And I had met a woman at an event. She was a coach, and I connected very deeply with her very quickly. And she gave me her card, and she said, if you ever want to explore working together. And I remember the day when I walked out of the building at work, and I said to myself, I cannot change the circumstances here, and I can't quit my job. So I need to do something proactive to help myself. And I contacted her, and honestly, my work with this woman, her name is Donna McLean, and I will thank her publicly for the rest of my life. The work I did with her completely changed my life. It was the beginning of my personal development and my spiritual journey, which is still unfolding. The work I did with her, she is also trained in the same way that I am. She's a coactive coach, although she brings in a lot of other modalities. And the very first thing we did together was she took me inward into myself, and we looked at my values, my core values, what I stand for, and sort of she helped me see my gifts. I didn't really believe I had any gifts, like there were things that I was really good at, especially in my TV career, but she helped me see my innate gifts that were always there. I just didn't appreciate them or see them. And I remember the day she said to me, I have to take off my coaching hat for a second, and I feel compelled to say this to you. You're meant to do what I do.
Wow.
And I had a physical, like a full body physical reaction when she said it. It was sort of like a lightning bolt going through my body. And it wasn't like a light bulb going on and the heavens opened and I thought, here are my answers. I actually kind of went the other way. I got defensive and I said, oh, sure. How, I'm just going to quit my career and quit my life and become a coach. How would I do that? But she unlocked something in me. It was like she opened this window that kind of opened me up to the possibility. And it took about 1.5 years before I even took the first step to my new career. But it was like, honestly, she opened a door.
It's interesting you say that as you're talking about that. I'm thinking back about all of the coaches that I have known and that I work with and that I coach. And the commonality is people that become coaches tend to have experienced the coaching experience from the other side. And that was with me, that was with you. And I know so many other people who went to a coach, began their journey, and decided they needed to become a coach.
Mm.
And it's kind of interesting. I'm not sure that all professions work that way, where you sort of get to experience it from the other side. But having realized the power from the receiving end of coaching, it does sort of become rather infectious, and you realize that there is something in you that wants to help others.
Absolutely. I think you really do need to experience it to feel the impact. This is really, really impactful work. And when you have a guide who is really able to take you into yourself and into your places of growth, it's life changing. For me, I what she helped me see, and what I did always know, I just sort of closed myself to it, but she helped me see that I have a gift of connecting very deeply with people very quickly. And I connect to a very deep inner part of them. I feel that I can see the beauty in people and the human being inside of people, the truth inside of people very quickly. And I'm able to, and I think they feel it's a felt sense. They can feel that. And it enables me to help people kind of go into themselves and see themselves in a way that maybe they haven't before. And what I realized is in my work with this coach and also with other coaches, I had to do a lot of work on myself because I had this limiting belief that I was responsible for everyone and everything, and that I needed to fix people. This was sort of an old belief that was with me my whole life. I was a fixer, and I always felt like I was meant to work in a helping field. But I told myself, well, I didn't choose that route. I'm a creative. I'm a TV person. And I used to say to my husband, I should have been a therapist or a social worker. And my husband used to say to me, that would never work because you take on people's pain too deeply. And back when I was a fixer and felt responsible for everyone, that would have been true. And as I went through my own journey of growth and understanding myself, I was able to let go of that belief that I don't need to fix anyone. And actually, people are not broken. And what's so beautiful about my training, my coactive training, is that the very first cornerstone in coactivity is that you really need to believe that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. And that it's not your job to fix anyone. They're not broken. But as a coach, they might feel broken, but we guide them to their own answers within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you use that word guide, which has come up a lot in the last number of podcasts as I've talked to other coaches. Coaches are very different than therapists or psychologists or counselors in that we do have that guiding component, that we're definitely a guide. And I too, in the beginning of my coaching career, thought that I had to fix people, and I learned that same lesson that you did. And actually, it was very clear. I think it was Sheltazar that sent me that message that I wasn't responsible for fixing the people that came to me. My only responsibility was for loving them. And a couple of minutes later, this bolt of lightning came and said, "You're not responsible for fixing yourself. All you have to do is fully love yourself." And the fact that, of course, as the coach and the person that was the coach, in other words, helping other people and helping myself, none of it is around fixing. It's all around loving. And it's so interesting that since I've shifted that way, a lot of people feed back to me that they feel that I'm very supportive and very empowering and very loving. And that's because I stopped, like you did, trying to fix people. It's kind of fascinating.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with all of that more. And I've had the same experience. And I tend to work with people who are highly self-critical and have what I call a loud inner critic. And when we start kind of going into what's going on within them, most of them already know that there's something within them that's holding them back from the life they want to be living. It always comes down to self-love, self-acceptance, self-forgiveness, This
Mhm.
is, and that's the work that I continue to do for myself as well.
Isn't it fascinating that as coaches we seem to attract, not seem to, it is a fact, I truly believe, that we attract into our life clients that help us process the things that we need to process. I find it fascinating that I'm in a calling, a vocation, where I get to be helping others, and at the same time, I'm helping myself. It's fascinating. You and I were just chatting before we started to record how clients seem to come with patterns in a given week, and all of a sudden you have two or three or four people with a similar issue, and you realize, wow, that's what I need to be going through as well. So the universe is really quite amazing in this coaching field, in this light worker helping field, that we not only get to help others, but we get to help ourselves by observing the mirror of who we are in everyone else.
Absolutely. And I think life is like that too. I think once you open the door within yourself towards, towards your own unfolding, it's endless, right? I know you've talked before about how, your own journey of self-discovery happened later in life. And in a way, it doesn't matter when it happens, it's endless. Once you
Oh,
open the door, it keeps going, and there's learning there from everyone and everything that touches your life.
absolutely. And that's the beauty of it. And that's something that, I would encourage the listeners to try and get a handle on. Most of us, a lot of people in life think that when I get the job, when I get married, when I get the promotion, when there's more money in the bank, everything will be fine. It is that destination focus that is the source of a lot of our suffering and a lot of our angst. When you start to finally relax that your journey of life is one of evolving and unfolding, it takes certain pressure off. And I've been I've been on my journey for 17 years now, and I continue to learn. And the good news is that the things I learned 10 years ago help me learn the things that I'm learning today, so that my ability to understand them, to be aware of them, to adjust and to shift keeps getting better and better. And I was just thinking the other day, as because I'm getting to that age and stage in my life when I'm probably closer to the end, definitely closer to the end of my human life than the beginning, and realizing we've lived here in Toronto for 10 years, and I've been thinking back of how I've evolved in 10 years, and I thought, my goodness, what am I going to be? Who am I going to be in 10 years from now if I've accomplished this much in terms of changes and shifts in 10 years? And often we forget to look back to help us look forward. I think a lot of people are so focused on trying to get there that you don't realize, and I'm sure you would agree, in the last number of years since you gave up, the TV industry and became a coach, you have changed and shifted a tremendous amount. And so why are we so worried about the next few years when we know we have the capacity to continue to evolve?
Yes, I actually just did that exercise recently where I stopped and allowed myself to look back at even the last 5 years, and how I really feel that there's like a big difference between the person I was and the person I am. And we're just capable of so much as long as we're open to it. So, but and as much as we can look back to move forward, I actually think visioning forward, not in the way of like, when I get there, then this will be fixed. It's more visioning forward into what's possible is also an amazing tool. And I remember when I was in this chaotic place, where I was sort of hoping that, that there was more to my life and that I could transition into something new, but I couldn't see the way forward. I remember finding myself in a daydream, one day, thinking about my daughter. I have a daughter, she's 6 years old right now, but she was quite young at the time. And imagining her as an adult telling people what her mother does for a living, and imagining that there is a possibility of this future where my TV career is like this fable to her in her experience. And really, my mother helps people. She works in a
Hmm.
helping field and she helps people. And
Hmm.
I don't know, there was something about getting lost in that daydream and that vision that made it seem more possible.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting you say that because Sheltazar makes it quite clear that creation comes from feelings. So that doesn't surprise me that daydream, and I highly recommend those kind of visioning or intentions. Simply by being in that daydream state, you are feeling what it is that you're intending, and feeling it now will bring it forth in the future. As a matter of fact, I recently channeled something from Sheltazar that talked about moving beyond the fourth dimension, where you forget about time. And what you did actually is, it's fascinating. What you did is exactly what it said in the channeling, which was let go of time, be in the now, and then bring what you want to you now. And so there's a lot of divine wisdom in what you did, maybe without you really realizing it. But that daydream state was an ideal tool for manifesting, according to what Sheltazar has shared with me. So kudos
Yes.
to you. Well done.
Well, thank you. I can see it in hindsight. And I think, yeah, that I was very skeptical in my past life, and before I kind of was on this journey of my own growth. I was skeptical of a lot of spiritual practices, and I think I'm really now just at the beginning of of where it's all going. But I came to a point where a couple of years ago I just decided, what do I have to lose by believing? I only have to gain by opening up my mind to believing in different things that I can't see but that I can feel.
And that's an interesting point, and I hear you. For me, my spiritual beliefs give me a sense of comfort, because the human existence I have, tends to not make me feel as good when you think of the upheaval that's happening in the world today, and all of the darkness and all of the hatred and death. So to me, those spiritual beliefs give me a sense of comfort. But the challenging part, you raise an interesting point. The challenging part is, if you're going to find spiritual beliefs that work for you, you tend to want to move away from maybe some of the traditional religious doctrine, where they're telling you, and discover things that make sense on your own. But how do you do that? Because nobody knows for sure. There's an ancient text called the Kabbalion, where they refer to the higher power as the all, and that they say the all is unknowable and unthinkable. So here it is, we're trying to figure out these spiritual beliefs, knowing full well that we're never really going to know for sure whether they're correct or not, but yet still searching for something that feels better for us.
Well, and I think you're speaking to the perfect person, because I still have a bit of a skeptic living inside of me, that I'm kind of having to check myself against all the time. But I think it really is being open to finding different pieces that work for you, and then just experimenting with them until you have the evidence that something really is helping you, like whether it is on a spiritual level or if it's just giving you the confidence, to move forward. In the end, does it really matter? If you find something that works for you, that helps you live the life that you're meant to live, that you want to live, why not believe?
Right. And I think that that's so important with regard to spiritual beliefs. Spiritual beliefs should be a very personal thing, and they should not necessarily have to serve the collective. And that's where I have a little bit of difficulty with organized religion, because organized religion tends to say that the people need to serve the religion. And I find that spiritual beliefs should serve us individually. I remember when I went on my journey of self-discovery and discovered spirituality. I was raised in the Jewish faith, And I wanted to give my religion a bit of an opportunity. And so I met with a rabbi on a weekly basis. We lived in Ottawa at the time. And I remember very, very distinctly, he was a lovely, lovely man. And he would come and he would share the intricacies of the laws of the Jewish doctrine. And I would listen because I had all of these other spiritual beliefs. And I'll never forget when it ended, and the conversation went something like this. I said, Rabbi, help me understand the Ten Commandments, especially thou shalt honor thy father and mother, when there are so many abusive parents out there. There are so many parents that do not treat their children well, with dignity and respect. And so how does this law apply? And he proceeded to list 3 or 4 things that those were the things that you need to do to qualify or to tick off the commandment, thou shalt honor thy father and mother. And the one that really got me was you should never take your father's place at the table. And it was like, I got a little trouble with that, because if that's all it takes to obey that command, that's not consistent with the goodness of how parents should treat children, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, it was this process of finding what didn't fit and then going off to see what did fit. And I just want to, suggest to you that your skepticism is good. I think it's good, and don't see it as something that's bad, because you're going to use that skepticism in order to find spiritual beliefs that work for you, not spiritual beliefs that people tell you should have.
Yes, and I do appreciate that, and I see that, and I can appreciate my skepticism. I think that's true of anything in life, anything that's sort of mass organized, like even something like a diet, like the newest fad diet. I don't think that anything that's organized for masses of people to follow is ever the right way to go. I do believe that all of our answers are inward. Like, we need to turn inward to what resonates with us and take bits and pieces from different ideas, and then live your life, according to what in your gut you feel is the right path for you.
100%. It's interesting that theme that you brought up of inward focus versus outward focus. You brought it up earlier, and I was going to comment on it, and I didn't, and you brought it up again. So I'll definitely comment on it. I think the difficulty that we have in our human experience is because we have too much outward focus. We are looking outside of ourselves for the answers. We are looking at everyone around us. And I know you would agree, we've talked about this before, the answers really come from within. And it's difficult because there's 7.5 billion people on the planet, and it's hard not to interact with the collective. But the true learning, the true growth, the true evolution and shifting comes when we go within. And of course, the purpose of that is so that when we do make that inner shift, we can show up in the collective in a different way. But it is too difficult to make that shift in the midst of all of the competing forces when we're outwardly focused. That's why meditation is certainly a great practice. Yoga is a great practice. Any practice that allows you to go within. And it's not to become introverted and to go within to stay within, but to go within so you can evolve and so you can find who you truly are, and then bring that to the collective. Would you agree?
I couldn't agree more, both in speaking from my own life experience and then also working with clients. And I think even at a very surface level, because I remember even when I first started working with coaches, and a coach used to say to me, you have your answers within, and I would get angry. Well, no, I don't. That's why I came to you. I don't know. And because I was a person who used to be in my head a lot, right? I thought that I was only my mind, and I used my thinking mind and my analytical mind. But a guide, like a coach, helps take you into like the human being that you are inside, like that we do have inner wisdom. I really know that now. And I have guided people into their inner wisdom. And I often find myself even saying to clients, get out of your head and drop into your body, because we have wisdom even with, like, in our bodies, within our emotions, in our felt bodies. We can learn a lot about what's really going on internally for us. But I was going to say, even at a surface level, going inward helps me figure out what's really going on. So just as an example, there are two difficult relationships that kind of showed up in my life, and that I couldn't, circumstantially couldn't get these people out of my life. They needed to be there. And they were both people who just bumped up against something within me and really stirred something up in me. And I was open to my own, my looking inward for my own answers. I realized, I kind of asked myself, like, what is really going on when I'm feeling angry about my interaction with this person? And that's when I realized, like, there were things internally that I needed to address and see within myself, that this person was sort of there to help awaken, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So you're onto something which is very interesting. And of course, a good purpose, one of the major purposes of this podcast is to bring spiritual wisdom forth in a practical way. And so both you and I agree that going within is a great practice. Jenny, help the listeners understand, what are some tips? You said that sometimes, that often you are able to get people, guide them inward to that inner wisdom. What can we share with the listeners in a practical way for you to go within to find that inner wisdom?
There's a few things that I lean on. And you mentioned meditation, and I was not a person who in the past ever meditated. And even now, I don't do it every single day. I think sometimes we get tripped up and we think, well, if I can't commit to having a practice where I'm doing it every day, whether it's gratitude or meditation, then I shouldn't be doing it. I don't believe that. I think, do it when you can. And if you get something out of it, then continue. So I've been experimenting with mindful self-compassion meditation, and I'm taking a course in it right now that my sister-in-law has introduced me to, that she's teaching, and I'm bringing it into my work with clients. And it's meditation based, so you're going within, but you're actually bringing love and compassion and kindness to yourself and to your own experience. It's a beautiful practice that has really been helping me. And it's also, it ties into the work that I do, about acknowledging what's really going on for us, and letting ourselves feel our feelings, feel and acknowledge our emotions. So that's another practice that is huge for me in my own life and with clients. When something comes up and you're feeling discomfort, I think societally we're sort of trained to try to fix it right away, or push it down, or push through it. And I now know that the answer is to actually go into it. So acknowledging, I feel scared, I am ashamed, I feel embarrassed, and actually letting yourself, giving yourself the chance to feel that emotion, feel where and how it's coming up in your body, acknowledging it, and then now with mindful self-compassion, sort of bringing some compassion to your experience, because all of these things are human, right? There's nothing wrong with you if you're feeling shame. Mm-hmm. In mindful self-compassion, there's this sort of notion of common humanity, like bringing common humanity into it, that it's a human experience to experience suffering, even if it's just momentary circumstantial suffering. I find that that's very comforting, to remind yourself that you're not alone. Everybody suffers in their own way. So that has been really helpful. I also work a lot with the concept of inner critic, as I mentioned before, and I don't believe in bypassing it. I allow clients and myself to hear what our self-criticisms are actually saying. I have them speak it out loud or write it down, so that you can really get it out of you, because we carry and hold these things so deeply inside, and they can often be blocks. in our lives. But when you actually get them out of you, you can usually see them for what they are, and you're more able to find the counter evidence, and to prove that self-critical part of you wrong. So I do a lot of work around that.
Yeah, to empty out. One of my previous guests mentioned a technique called the brain dump, and so if you could do a self-critical dump, if you could dump out all of that criticism on the page, and that leads me to what I think is a certain essential part of getting to that inner wisdom, and that is letting go of the mind, letting go of whether it's the inner critic, whether it's the inner judge, whatever it is, let go of the mind. And when you do, I think you will connect to that inner wisdom, because I believe, and Sheltazar has led me to believe, that inner wisdom is not logic, it is not language, it is not linearity, it is a feeling. And in order to get in touch with that feeling, you need to be able to feel. You need to be able to not think. It's interesting. I get a lot of clients to say to me, "Well, how do I feel?" And I simply say, "Stop thinking." And although that's easy, if you realize that often your thinking edges out your connection to your feeling. So if you can get into a more feeling place, you are opening up the pathway to that inner wisdom. Sheltazar says that wisdom is in every cell of our body. It is part of our DNA. It is the source within. And we are very capable of tapping into it, but we have to realize it doesn't speak a language. It's more sensory.
Yes, 100%. There is a guided visualization that I do at the beginning of my coaching relationship with any new client. And it's, this was something that when I experienced it myself for the first time, was so powerful that I actually felt inner peace for the first time in my entire life. And it's a visualization that takes people in to get in touch with what we call your inner leader. And of course, whether you want to call it your inner wisdom, a higher wisdom, we all have this piece within us that is sort of the internal driver. And it's where we are living from our values, right? And where when we are making decisions from that inner leader place, that's when our lives feel aligned. And when we're feeling off, usually we're making decisions from a different place, maybe from fear, right? So yeah, I can't even tell you how powerful it is to witness other people getting in touch with this part of themselves for the first time and realizing that it's a resource, that they have a resource within that they can lean on.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate again that with the world as crowded as it is, with the internet and social media, there is so much interference outside of us that it's totally confusing, because often we are interpreting the outside world with our mind, and our mind is only capable of processing so much, and it can be very confusing. Whereas if you go to that inner wisdom, higher power, higher wisdom, it doesn't really matter what you call it, but to connect with it inwards, you will find a sense of peace. They do not send you that wisdom. You do not connect to that wisdom in the same way you do to the internet, where it feels confusing and contradictory. It's very reassuring, it's very loving, it's very supportive, and it's very empowering. So if you get one thing out of today's podcast, begin to work on your own practice of going within and tapping into that inner wisdom.
Yes, that truly is my wish for everyone, and one of the big reasons why I believe I need to be doing this work.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can't believe that we're just about at the end of the podcast. Time has passed so quickly, and I don't think there's anyone I would recommend more than Jenny to go and chat with to help you get in touch with that inner wisdom. Jenny, you've been an amazing guest. You can see that there's such synergy between the two of us, and when you feel that, you know that there is a certain resonance vibration. I've been pleased and privileged to have that resonance vibration with a lot of my guests. Jenny, please tell the listeners how they can find you, because I would highly recommend you as a coach. Hopefully the listeners have got a sense of who you are, and that telephone of yours and that email should be ringing off the wall, because I highly recommend people to get in touch with you so that you can help them find that inner wisdom. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you. Your bio and contact information will be in the podcast description, but what is it that you want to share with the listeners, how they can get in touch with you?
Thank you, Jeffrey. That was a beautiful endorsement, and I really appreciate it. I always do an exploration call to start with people, because I really believe there has to be that felt sense that we're meant to work together, right? And that energy between the client and myself. So the best way to start is to send me an email. So it's Jenny with a Y, and tryansky@gmail.com. I also have a website that's under construction, but I have a landing page, so it's jennytryansky.com. And I have a Facebook page, Jenny Tryansky Personal Development Coaching, where I share things that I take inspiration from. I have a video on there to find out more about sort of what I do and who I serve and how I work. But yeah, I think just having that initial conversation and feeling into if there is a chemistry between us is the best way to start.
Excellent. Jenny, thank you so much for being an amazing guest. Thank you all for listening to the Jeffrey Eisen podcast, this Shaltazar episode. Once again, my name is Jeffrey Eisen. I am a spiritual life coach, the channeler of Shaltazar, and an energy intuitive. Thank you all for listening. You can find out more about my offerings and content on my website, jeffreyeisen.com. If you wish to be a guest on the Shaltazar podcast, you can get in touch with me at jeffrey@jeffreyeisen.com. Thank you all for listening and tuning in. I wish you all the best in your journey of life. I hope that, like Jenny and I, you are able to tap in to that inner wisdom. Love and life to you all.